Hey everyone, it's Brandon Browning here again with eXp Realty. In today's video, I'm going to be speaking about the inspection and due diligence period from a buyer's perspective. So we get questions all the time from buyers asking about this period. They're asking me, they'll say something like, "Hey, what happens if I want to back out of a contract and I'm still in this inspection and due diligence period?" All right, so what happens? What happens to my deposit check, and so on and so on. So here's how it goes. Whenever you get a home under contract, you have this inspection and due diligence period, which I believe is addressed on lines 155 through 195 on your real estate contract. Now on line 162, you'll see where it's a specific amount of calendar days that this period lasts. Typically you see between 10 to 12 days on average, but you can see more or less than that depending on the situation and depending on the agent. So this period actually begins the day after the contract is fully executed, meaning signed by both the buyer and the seller. So if it's signed today by both the buyer and the seller, tomorrow this period starts. So the way you want to think about this is the buyer's opportunity to thoroughly investigate the property that they're buying. Also, if you're moving from one area to another and you're not too familiar with that area, this is your opportunity to familiarize yourself with the community that you may be buying in. You can research crime reports, speak to local law enforcement, go knocking on some doors, talk to some neighbors and things of that nature, so that you can be sure this is exactly where you want to live. Now, when it comes to inspecting the home, some buyers may decide to inspect the home on their own, but most generally decide to hire that professional home inspector, which is what I highly recommend that every home buyer does. It's just a small expense to make sure that you're buying a safe home, basically. But if you choose to hire that professional home inspector, this is a buyer's cost. You will have to pay for that at the inspection. So you have to pay the inspector whenever he's completes his job. So one thing you want to do when you get the home under contract, the sellers have to fill out seller disclosure documents. Okay, so you'll want to review those documents, look at the disclosed defects that they may have. If there's anything disclosed on there, you'll want to provide that to your home inspector. That's just going to help him do his job better. All right, so and he'll appreciate that. So once the inspection is completed, you will then have some options. Option one, if you see some major things and you just decide that this home is no longer for me, you can terminate that agreement and declare that agreement null and void from there. Now, if for some reason you do decide to terminate that agreement, your agent will then draw up some cancellation documents, and he or she will send those documents over to the seller's agent and have them signed by the seller. So once those get signed, that contract is no longer active, I guess you can say. So option two, you, the buyer, then have the option to indicate in writing to the seller what deficiencies or defects that you observe or the inspector observed, and you can list those things that you want the seller to address, and also list your remedies. Your real estate agent will draw this document up. You will have to sign it. He or she then will send it over to the other agent, and at this point the seller has 72 hours to respond to your request. So this basically just becomes another negotiation, because that seller is not obligated to remedy anything. So, but they do have to respond within those 72 hours. But most of the time, as long as your requests are reasonable, that seller is going to respond in a reasonable fashion also. So once the seller sends over his response, if you're not satisfied with that seller's response, you can still walk away from the transaction. But I would recommend that you reach out to your agent and say, "Hey, can you call this other agent and maybe try to get this taken care of and this taken care of, and let them know that we're thinking about walking away." Try to go through some further negotiations before you just decide to walk away, because then you have time and money invested into it. You've already paid for the inspection, right? So let's see if we can make it work. Now, just to address one more thing that's very, very important, recognize that failure to do either one of these, meaning to terminate or send any request to that seller during that inspection time, those calendar days that's disclosed on line 162, this means that you accept the home in its current condition. So if you decide to back out after this inspection period, unless you back out for reasons other than or if you back out because of failure for financing, or the appraisal comes in lower than the contract price, or some other things, I think that all those conditions are listed on lines 119 through 141 on your contract. If you back out for any other reasons than those listed, you can be sued by the seller. Now, if you want details on that, you can look on lines 264 through 272 on your contract. So that's about it. I appreciate you watching again. If you have any questions about this or anything else involving real estate, please feel free to give me a call. I'll be glad to talk to you. Again, my name is Brandon Browning with eXp Realty, and hope to hear from you soon. Thanks so much.